Hi everyone, my name is Mithun and I'm working in GeekyAnts from past 2 years as a software engineer in platform. And today we will be speaking about uh, observability specifically for microservices and why we need to use OpenTelemetry for observability standardization. Um, Coming to the agenda for the talk, first we'll be speaking about the modern systems. We'll be basically comparing the uh, old legacy systems with our current modern system. And later we'll be speaking about what is observability, the pillars of observability. Later we'll move on to why we need to use observability. And then what are the challenges that we face if you're not using observability for your microservice application. Later we'll move on to what is telemetry and what are the advantages of telemetry and why we need to use for telemetry specifically for observability microservices. And later I'll be also showing you a small demo where I have deployed two applications on different flashes and we are using a distributed tracing over here. And after that, we'll be giving a small final thoughts and if Q&A session if you have any questions. So, coming to modern systems or context, if you remember, how many of you are aware of microservices over here? Pretty much everyone, right? So, for the people who don't know, microservices are nothing but before in time we were using monolith services, right? Where you are putting backend, front end, your CMS, all the code used to kind of go into a bundle kind of thing, and it used to run as a single application. Even if you have to scale the application, you have to scale the whole monolith application. But in microservices, we are dividing the same application into different parts, different small individual parts which are not quite tightly coupled with each other. They might be having, for example, if you are taking a e-commerce application, there are product services, checkout services, user auth service, cell, and coming to modern applications are complex. If you are using only monitoring with the microservices, the checking for the availability or like if you are trying to figure out where failure happened, it's very difficult because the failure are distributed. Maybe your few microservices might be deployed on a cluster one and few other might be deployed on a cluster, some other cluster. So if you're using observability over here, it will say exactly where the issue has happened, why the issue has occurred, and it will be very easy for the developer or the DevOps team to look into. And if you're using only monitoring in the microservices, you just have to, continuously tile all the logs of all the services in multiple tabs and keep on rolling. You won't be able to, I won't say you won't be able to figure out the issue, but it will take at least 10 times more the time of what you get it in by using observability. So let's move on to what even is observability. Mm. Like I said, observability is a next version of monitoring, you can say. While monitoring solely depends on metrics and logs, observability also carries tracing with it. So putting all the metrics, logs, and traces together, what you can do is you can actually detect, or you can say how you can see how your application may be performing in the server, or you can easily, I mean, there's no transparent. There's more transparency with observability than monitoring. There are mainly three pillars of observability, that is metrics, logs, and traces. Metrics are nothing but like CPU utilization, like time consumed for particular request or something like that. Logs are what you have defined for suppose you have an example that if you're inserting something to database and you would be logging successfully inserted or the database constructed or something like that. What the traces will do is it will go into a further step. It will show you the end-to-end map for the whole request cycle. That is, if you are trying to check out for a, you're trying to do the checkout in the e-commerce application, that might be behind the scenes hitting the auth service, user service, and again coming back to checkout, and it might be hitting database as well. So using observability, you can have a complete map of what is happening behind the scenes of your application, and you know exactly what your application is doing in the server. Mhm. Why you need to use observability? Using observability, you will get the faster incident response. That is, suppose some of your services go down, and immediately if you open the observability tool and you go to particular error logs, and later you can be just redirected to that particular trace, and you know exactly where the thing is failing. And easier root cause analysis in microservices. Each I mean all the requests will have a trace, right? And that trace will contain number of spans. That span is nothing but the op that request has taken from different services. Suppose again you are eating a service, and that service is internally eating a function, and that function might be tending to call a new service. So you will have the entire span over between. It is the trace on the span, and span to continue like that until the very end of the request completion. So using the trace, you can be able to detect exactly where the issue is happening and resolve it very fast. No observability. If you're not using any observability in your microservices, I would like to give a real world example that we had a client who didn't agree for observability in the initial stage, and when it went to the prod, actually the issue was initially the application was super quick, and as the users grow, and the application started to become very slow. And if you go to the server and see, all the metrics are fine, and CPU utilization and RAM usage, everything is in under control. But only the application is slow. In those kind of condition, you just keep on debugging without getting anywhere at the end of the day. After spending 2 days of time, we decided to put observability into the same project. And after putting into implementing the observability in the project, we got to know that DB queries were very slow, the indexes were not proper. Uh, this after like the observability addition took only 1 day after, but we had already spent 2 days of debugging, which will let us know. So using observability will definitely save your time, and also having a APM with your application is a add-on feature for now observability with observability. Um, what is OpenTelemetry? OpenTelemetry is a open source observability tool, which is a unified tool, you can say. It provides APK and APIs and SDKs, and those SDKs can be used for in your application to instrument your apps. That is, even if you are not familiar with OpenTelemetry, you would be instrumenting your app in some way or the other way to export metrics and logs. Right? OpenTelemetry also does the same thing, but once you instrument your application with OpenTelemetry, you don't have to care about what tools you are using to at the back end to monitor. Like suppose you are using Tempo for tracing in your microservices, and you're instrumenting it with tracing. And in future, if you want to change the tool, you need to change the whole application, which will again have a developer's effort into it, and also it's time consuming. But if you are using OpenTelemetry, and if you are instrumented your application once, you can use this. You can change the tool at the OpenTelemetry end. There's one small configuration which is OpenTelemetry's high configuration, where OpenTelemetry pipeline will receive the data from OpenTelemetry, and that telemetry data will be exported to the tools that are being sent in the backend. There, you can just change the tool from Tempo to Eager or Eager to Tempo, anything of those. Mm, how OpenTelemetry works. Like I said, SDKs and APIs are provided by OpenTelemetry, which you can be using for instrumenting your application, right? After implementing the SDKs, you will be exporting the data somewhere, right? There, the if you can see over here, there's OpenTelemetry collector over here, right? All your application data from different distributed deployments will be sent to this uh, OpenTelemetry collector. From there, OpenTelemetry processes this data, and then it sends to the backend monitoring tools, whichever you are using. There's one small configuration file which I would like to show you. This is the receiver of OpenTelemetry. First I'll show the instrumentation that I have done. This is the auto instrumentation that I have used, and here I am exporting traces, metrics, and log to OpenTelemetry endpoint, right? Okay. And OpenTelemetry will be uh, will be collecting at this particular endpoint, and it will process the data. This is the pipeline responsible for importing and exporting of the data. That is OpenTelemetry traces data will be received at hotel service end, and it will be exported to this particular hotel. There have configured exporters over here. This hotel is nothing but the tempo exporter, Prometheus, and Loki. If you want to further change the tool from Loki to a different log, you need to replace this Loki with the logging tool you want to use. And in the service pipeline, you need to scroll down, and in the exporter, I'm exporting it to Loki. You need to just change it to the tool you want to use, and you don't have to change anything in the application. It's a one-time effort. Now coming to why you need to use OpenTelemetry. Like I said, it's a unified tool, right? You won't be needing efforts again and again to instrument your application. And also changing the tool at any time is very easy with super easy with OpenTelemetry. Also, OpenTelemetry supports multiple backends like Prometheus, Grafana, and Jaeger, Tempo, etc. Also, OpenTelemetry supports many languages like Node, Python, Go, Java, etc. And like I said, it's one-time instrumentation. Coming to why this setup will save your time. It's easy to integrate. They all OpenTelemetry also provides auto instrumentation and manual instrumentation. Auto instrumentation is where you don't have to change anything in your code. There's one just small configuration. You just need to call those SDKs and need to specify where you want to export that data, and you need to just start the SDK before you are starting the actual application. And faster onboarding is you don't have to train your developers to use multiple tools for instrumenting your application. You just have to ask them to learn OpenTelemetry instrumentation, and they'll be able to instrument your app. And any tools that you want to use can be reached out to DevOps team, and they'll be helping you with the problems. And OpenTelemetry provides with centralized visibility. That being said, whatever I mean, from all the services we'll be exporting to a single place, that is OpenTelemetry collector, from where the OpenTelemetry will be sending the data to backend. So you have a centralized place where you are storing the particular data of your applications, like metric, logs, and labels. And OpenTelemetry, since it's open source, it's very cost efficient, and also there's no much effort in or instrumenting it again and again. So it's very cost effective. Don't have to ask the developers to instrument your applications again and again. So now coming to tools that I have used for this demo in using OpenTelemetry. I've used Prometheus for metrics, Logi for logging, and Grafana to visualize the data, and Tempo for tracing. What I have done is I've used two node applications where I I would just use auto instrumentation. I would not done manual instrumentation. If you are doing a manual instrumentation, you'll be having even more granularity of your application behavior. Like you can see, I have deployed the API caller service, that is service one, in a different cluster, and also I have deployed API server. API service that is on different other cluster with OpenTelemetry components and all the monitoring team components. These are the metrics that the OpenTelemetry has sent to our Grafana using our Prometheus. Here, when you go to explore and select your tempo, you can actually search the traces that you want. Here, the traces contains a trace ID for each trace and the start time of that, and the service that created this trace, and also with the particular route that this trace is responsible, with the time taken at the very end. Suppose you find some trace is taking very much of time. You can just click on the trace and find exactly why it's taking the time. You have selected a trace which was taking 3 seconds, but all the like metrics and uh, logs were 5 minutes. Like they are not very CPU intensive or resource intensive, and only the time taken by the application was more. So I just immediately clicked on the trace and saw what is happening, and you can see that service one it's calling call slow API, which is again internally calling the service to call slow. And if you go and see the query over here, it's taking 3 seconds of time to execute. And it also shows the query that is running in the application. By using this, you can exactly find how much time your each DB query is taking, and you can report it to the developer to optimize the queries. Use case is error debugging. Suppose you want to debug a error and using you open Grafana dashboard, go to Loki, you search for the error log that for the service which you want to debug, and run the query. You will be getting all the error logs that the service has generated. Now configure it in a way that if you're clicking on the log, it will take you to the tempo dashboard where the whole cycle of the request will be shown. And you need to just click on that. You will to see it. Like I clicked on that, I clicked on that work and I am able to see a tempo URL over here. And if I click there, I'll be getting the whole trace log of that particular request it was done. You can see that the role dice request was called and internally it is calling service to. And inside the service to, this particular function is failing. You can click on that span and you can see exactly which request handler or route is failing. Like this, you can be using OpenTelemetry or tracing or it- to debug your application more efficiently. The second use case is better performance insights. Like I said, if logs are normal and when there's no much change in metrics as well, you won't be able to find what is happening inside your application or the server, right? So what we can do is you just like here, for example, I'm running slow API. The logs are fine. It shows the success log, and even the metrics were actually fine. And when you click on that particular log, when I click on that particular log, I'll get that table. And once I open that tempo link, I find exactly like why the application is slow. The service one is again calling the service two, where the service two is running my slow DB query. Using this, you can exactly find why your application is behaving the way it is behaving. And later, if you report this issue to again to the development team, it will be resolved in no time. Key takeaways is observability is not optional; it is essential because in the microservice the errors are always distributed. So you need to have observability in your microservices. And metrics, logs, and traces answer different critical questions. That is, metrics answers the resource utilization of the servers. Logs the way the server, like what is happening inside the server, and traces show you where and why it is happening. And open telemetry, why you need to use open telemetry? Like I said, it's vendor neutral, one time instrumentation of the application, and you can start using any tools that you want to monitor at the end. And better visibility means faster debugging and more confidence. What it means is if you are able to detect the issue fast and you're able to give a proper fix as soon as possible, the customer trust will be better than if you're only having monitoring, and if your application goes down and if you spend time on debugging the issue for the whole day, your app will be down and the customer trust in your organization will go down eventually. So, investing in observability saves time, money, and sanity. That being said, if you're putting in observability from the beginning of the project, and since the observability is in the project from the beginning, we'll be able to know how what is the application's requirement, and how it is performing. Is it performing as per expectation, or it is taking too much of resource, or the application is as fast as expected, or something like that. So investing in observability early really saves time. Mm, Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll take it up.